tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 18th part of What If Harry Potter Meets High School DxD. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Asian Lion Heart 310 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. 1 year later, Harry married again with Ravel Phoenix. It was well known that she had a crush on him ever since his battle with her brother Rias, and after obtaining the approval of Harry's girls, she confessed her love to him. Much to her joy, it was mutual and the two went to many dates before marrying. Due to his victory over Albus Dumbledore and the fact the guy's brother was dead, House Dumbledore became House Firelight. Ravel got from her lover a appealing golden ring where a ruby was engraved on it. The stone itself could be described as the main body of a phoenix whose wings were wide open as if it was ready to take off. The weddings were all memorable and all of their friends, even Sirius, Remus, Tonks and Azazel, who Harry grew to appreciate, were invited. Kunu, Yasaka's daughter, soon started to call Harry father, much to his delight, as daddy would be really weird. Ravel and Harry's wedding was also memorable because of Fawkes' arrival. The previous familiar of Albus Dumbledore bonded with the youngest Phoenix and was renamed Ho-Oh. Needless to say that Ravel became even more popular in the supernatural world for being the proud owner of a phoenix. Issei also became the husband of Rias Gremory and realized his dream of HRM King. As his girls, he got Rias of course, Asia, Kaneko, Rosweiss, Irina and Zenobia. Of course, Harry had menaced to cut the perv's family jewels if he harmed either Asia or Kaneko. Issei had wholeheartedly promised to take care of them under the laughs of the people watching. Another surprise was the later wedding of Elmenhild and Gasper. After the demise of the wizards and witches, the two of them got to know each other a bit more and in the end, they fell in love with one another despite one being a damper. At the souvenirs, Harry released a chuckle. While he was now 32 years old, his body stopped aging at age 25, which was also the age he graduated university. He won't get wrinkles anytime soon, at least. One of the many good points in being immortal. But then a familiar house elf appeared before him in a soft crack. "Yes, Willie?" Harry asked the young house elf with a kind smile while putting his book aside. Willie had been accepted into the mansion 2 years ago after Mickey died of old age. Fanny was still around, but herself was getting old and soon she will leave this existence completely. Mstrs Rainier, Mstrs Tiamat, Mstrs Akeno, and Mstrs Kuroka asked Willie to tell Mstr Harry that she is returning with the little ones. The house elf responded with a bow. Harry rolled his eyes in fond annoyance at the elf's antics. No matter how many times he inquired him to stop calling him Mstr, he still did it. "What about Yasaka, Gabriel and Ravel?" Harry asked the elf with a raised brow. "Still at work, Mstr." Once again annoyed by the word, Harry then dismissed Willie, who bowed at him one more time before disappearing. Chuckling, the dark-haired man rose back on his feet before making his way out of the library to the dining room. His mansion was many times bigger in the inside now thanks to some new habitants that came into his life 7 years ago. "Who are they?" "You will see soon enough." "Fanny." Harry called out, and instantly, right in front of him, appeared the female house elf who loyally served him for so many years. "Mstr Harry asked for Fanny," she asked him in an old tone. She was already aged when she first served him and she knew that soon, she would join Mickey in the afterlife. Thankfully, she had both Willie and Darcy to help her. Darcy was another house elf Harry adopted into the family. Her previous owners sell her out because she was apparently a good-for-nothing elf, but it was just a way to make her feel bad. At first depressed by being kicked out, Darcy soon found another purpose in life thanks to Harry and his wives. Back to present, Harry nodded his head at the elderly elf before opening his mouth to say. "Can you and Darcy start making dinner? I heard the kids are coming." "Of course Mstr." Fanny nodded eagerly before snapping her fingers, which resulted in her disappearing in a crack. "I swear those elves are deliberately calling me that just to annoy me," Harry grumbled under his breath once the house elf was out of sight. "Or maybe because others like it when you are frustrated," a familiar voice echoed behind him along with giggles. Turning his head, Harry smiled warmly when he saw his mother Esh standing behind him along with Muerte. Both of them were staring at him with nothing but pure love in their eyes. "Mom, Aunt Moo," Harry greeted them with an affectionate hug. The primordial deity of life kissed him on both cheeks before letting him go. Despite him being mature and all, he was still her baby boy. Muerte, was nostalgic as her mind went back to the time when Harry was a cute little kid. "Here to feast with the family, huh?" Harry asked them with a knowing look and a raised brow. "Of course. Can't fault your mother to want to pass some time with her grandkids, right?" Esh inquired him with a grin. "Or me wanting to visit my beloved grandnieces and grandnephews?" Muerte added with a grin of her own. "Funny, I was about to say the same thing," a new voice echoed, and the trio turned their heads to see Destiny, the primordial deity of fate, stepped out of a portal with a playful raised brow. Harry had been at odds with his other aunt for a while because it was her fault if he ended up having to deal with awful situations, but now, they were good. "Aunt Destiny," the emerald-eyed man said in greetings to the newcomer along with a hug which she returned wholeheartedly. The primordial deity of fate then nodded her head in greeting to her sisters, who returned it with a fond smile on their faces. "Now that we are all here, we are the little ones." Esh literally cooed at her son. "Willie told me not long ago that they were coming back, but I don't know where they are at the mom dash," Harry began to say before the sound of an opening door interrupted him along with a really familiar voice shouting to the top of its lungs. "Honey, we are home." Harry stared blankly at where the mansion's front doors were before slowly turning his head toward the deities, who all giggled in amusement at the face he was making. Sighing deeply in both amusement and annoyance, the dark-haired green-eyed man turned his head away from his mom and aunts when footsteps were heard. He didn't have the time to react when many small figures pounced on him. "Daddy!" multiple voices shouted at the same time, and Harry couldn't help but laughing as he laid under the pile. Laughs echoed from the deities at the sight of the man being pinned down by a group of kids, and they were soon joined by Kuroka, Akeno, Tiamat and Rainier when the four made their way into the dining room to stand at their side. "All right kittens, that's enough, Naya?" The black-haired Nekashu inquired in a stern but amused tone as her hazel eyes looked at each kids. "Yes ma'am," they chorused obediently as they stepped away. From the pinned form of Harry Peveril, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Emery's Lou, Fay, Stark, Fireflight, ugh, a mouthful name. Yes, you heard right, the little ones over there were none other than Harry's kids. They were born not long after Harry graduated. His girls had been strict in this, they all wanted to wait until he finished his education before thinking about having kids. In the end, he was the proud father of a good numbers of adorable children who were loved by everyone. His first child had been with Ophis, and it was a girl. After a lot of thinking, they named her Lilith. Rias idea, and honestly she was a carbon copy of her mother, except she got the emerald green eyes of her daddy. In term of behavior, she was literally Ophis girls. Lilith was quickly followed by her other siblings, which I will present to you right now. The first one was Aurora, and she was the daughter of Harry and Rainier. From her father, she inherited his raven hair and his big heart, while she received the violet eyes and the good looks of her mother. The second child was also a girl named Ira. Her parents were Harry and Tiamat. From her father, she inherited his green eyes along with his determination, while she got the blue eyes, the beauty and the strength of her mother. The third and fourth children were twins, a boy and a girl, and their parents were Harry and Akeno. The boy's name was Jacob in memory of Harry's dead brother, and inherited his mom's violet eyes and his dad's raven hairs. Little Jacob also got his father's good look. The girl's name was June, and contrary to her twin, she got her mom's black hair and her dad's green eyes. Unfortunately, the two were also mischievous and loved pranks. Something Sirius Black had greatly appreciated contrary to the others. The fifth child was a girl named Misaki whose parents were Harry and Seraphol Leviathan. She had the raven hairs of her father but the pink eyes of her mother. She got Seraphol's cheerfulness but also her determination and her selflessness. However, she also got her father's kindness and strength. The sixth child was also a girl named Suki, and she was the carbon copy of her mother, Yasaka, but had the eyes of her father. Like her mother, she was humble and well-mannered, but like her father, she was also selfless, determined and strong-willed and physically. The seventh kid was a boy named Jane, son of Harry and the seraph Gabriel. He received his mother's curly blonde hair and his father's emerald green eyes. Of all his children, Jane was the least excited. In fact, he was more mature than most and acted like some sort of protector to his siblings. With Kuroka, Harry got 6 children. Yes, you heard right, 6 kids. It was mostly due to the black Nikusha wanting her species to bloom again. About the children, there were 4 girls and 2 boys. To their parents' shock, not all of them were Nekashus. 2 of them are, one if a Nikomata, and the last ones are special. The girls were named Hayami, Masako, Kiyo and Haim. Masako had her father's green eyes and her mother's black hairs. She also have 2 black cat ears along with 2 black tails. She inherited her mother's beauty and grace as well as her father's determination to do what was right. She is also really protective of her siblings. Kiyo, had the raven hairs of her father but the golden eyes of her aunt Kaneko. She is an innocent and somewhat curious girl but could be fierce when angered. In fact, her temper was the only thing bad about her. Like her sister Masako, she also got a pair of cat ears and tails. Hayami had her mother's hazel eyes but her hairs were raven black with darker tips. She was the tallest of the litter and the strongest of the girls. Despite her stern and fierce nature, she was compassionate and kind, almost motherly. Unlike her sisters Kiyo and Masako, she didn't inherited the cat ears nor the tails to be Nekashu. In fact, she, like her little sister Haim, got the same power than her father, the ability to take another appearance man-beast, were-beast, and full-beast. However, she doesn't turn into a black lion like Harry but another big cat, the Siberian tiger. In those forms, she had the same durability than her father. Last girl but not least, Haim. She was the youngest of Harry's and Kuroka's kittens, being the last born, and she was the most adorable one at that. Her puppy eyes perfectly matched Asia in term of cuteness. She got her mom's black hairs and her father's emerald eyes. Murat even commented that, of all the children the two had, Haim looked the most like her father. She was also really shy and timid but very curious and well-mannered. However, it had been discovered later that she possessed a fiery temper when pissed. Like her sister Hayami and her father, she received the ability to change her appearance. While her father was a lion and her sister a tiger, Haim could turn into a black panther/leopard. Now that the girls are all presented, time for the boys. The first one was named Takashi and the second Iolos. Takashi was the strongest of the two but the second tallest in the litter. He was really protective of his siblings and the more mature of the 2 boys. He got the same hair color than his aunt Kaneko but black-tipped and the hazel eyes of his mother. He had the ability to turn into a white Bengal tiger. Iolos was the least mature of the 2. In fact, he was carefree, playful and really mischievous. Because of this, he sometimes got into trouble. But he was really loyal and would do anything for his family. Much to Harry's sadness, Iolos looked like a carbon copy of James Potter but thankfully, wasn't as naive as the man was. He was also the one who surprised not only his parents but also his aunt Kaneko. Why? Because he was born with a pair of cat ears and twin tails. The Nikomata mainly consisted of females and males were really rare. Back to present, Harry slowly went back on his feet while looking at his kids with nothing but pure paternal love. How was school today? The man asked his little ones with a fond smile. He had registered them in Kuo Elementary at age 4 and so far, all of them were doing good once, they had throw a temper tantrum but after a long lecture from their parents, the kids obeyed albeit reluctantly for a few of them. Buyuri-eyeing. Iolos, Kiyo, Misaki, Jacob and June replied at the same time with what looked like whining faces. It was good daddy/Oto-san. Haim, Ira, Aurora, Suki and Masako cried out loudly with stars in their eyes. It was all right father, Takashi, Hayami and Jane responded respectfully to their father but it was easy to see their shining eyes. They were without a doubt pleased with whatever they learned today. Lilith, as usually, didn't say a word and instead offered a shrug. She was the less talkative of Harry's kids as well as the most difficult one to read as she hid her emotions pretty well. Like mother like daughter. Harry, Tiamat, Esh, Muerte, Rainier, Kuroka and Akeno laughed at the different answers but then the only man of the group opened his mouth to say. All right little ones if you have homework, I suggest you do them because tomorrow, we are going to the underworld. The kids mainly Iolos, Kiyo, Misaki, Jacob and June groaned at the word homework but then cheered at the last part. The only times they went to the underworld, it was usually to visit some family members, mainly their uncles and aunts. What about Mr. Padfoot? Jacob and June asked their parents with hope in their eyes. It was no secret that the twins loved Lord Black as the latter was a prank MSTR. It was because of him that the twins became more of a handful. Sorry kids. Padfoot won't be coming anytime soon too much work. Oh, the twins pouted in disappointment which earned them giggles of amusement from the rest of the crew. Yeah that's sad, Harry began to say with a hint of sarcasm before adding with a grin. Now off to your rooms. Or else, you won't get sweets. Hearing the word sweets, the kids all perked up, some even literally drooled in anticipation, before dashing to their rooms to do their homeworks. Chuckling in amusement at how fast they left, the emerald-eyed man turned his attention back toward the only people still present in the dining room. Let's see how long it will take for them to finish their works. I'm ready to bet 300 yens it will be 5 minutes. Harry inquired playfully to them with a grin. A grin quickly matched by his wives. I bet on 2 minutes. Rainier inquired with a glance at the others. 4 minutes. Tiamat said with a chuckle of amusement. 3 minutes at most fufufu. Akeno stepped in with a giggle. You are all wrong. They will be out there in 10 seconds. Kuroka replied with a cat-like grin. The others women along with Harry looked at her with confusion. Why 10 seconds? The emerald-eyed man asked her with a frown while crossing his arms over his muscular chest. The black-haired Nekasha smirked toothily at him while counting, 5 4 3 2 1. We are done, many cries came from the rooms a second after Kuroka said, 1. Harry, Tiamat, Rainier and Akeno stared blankly at the hall before turning their heads toward Kuroka who only grinned triumphantly at them before expectantly extended her right hand forward. Grumbling, the four reached into their purses before giving her the promised money just as the kids all reappeared in the dining room, looking up at their father with shining eyes. It was easy to guess what they wanted. Well, I did promise them sweets, didn't I? Harry asked his wives who chuckled at him in response. Willie. Yes, MSTR, the house elf asked him with a bow. Prepare some sweets for the little ones but you will only give them after dinner. Harry inquired the elf. The kids, who were cheering, all awed in disappointment when their father told the elf to wait before giving them their prices. Of course MSTR Harry. Willie inquired with slight amusement before snapping his fingers, disappearing with a crack. Once again annoyed by the elf's antics, Harry sighed deeply before looking at the kids. He opened his mouth to say something when in a burst of white flame appeared Hedwig, the noble white royal phoenix. Hedwig, the kids cheered in greeting for the noble bird who thrilled back happily to them. The little ones loved her dearly just as much as they loved their father or their moms. Hedwig, ever since she laid her eyes on them, grew really fond of the kids as she literally saw them as their own hatchlings. Good to see you again, Harry called out to the bird while conjuring a perch for her to use, which she did. Turning his attention away from his familiar, Harry looked back at everyone present before opening his mouth to say, "All right everyone. I'm sure dinner will soon come, so let's just sit down and the man began to say until he heard someone knocking at the front doors. "I will be back," Harry inquired with a hint of annoyance at being interrupted before making his way toward the doors while behind, his mother, his aunt, his wives and the kids were sitting around the table, waiting. Opening the doors, Harry's face softened even more when he saw who it was: Yasaka, Kunu and Gabriel. "Hello there handsome," the oldest kitsune cooed at him before pulling him into a kiss, which he of course returned without hesitation. "Hey there sweetheart," Harry greeted back before looking at Gabriel, who gave him a warm smile until the two kissed. For a few seconds, they stayed like this until they heard someone clearing their throats. Turning their heads, they saw an annoyed Kunu who had her arms crossing over her large busts. Kunu was now a gorgeous young woman and the carbon copy of her mother, but sometimes she still had her childish behavior. "Sorry kid, I didn't see you," Harry inquired in fake apology while also teasing her a bit. Kunu pouted at him while her eyes narrowed dangerously. "No you didn't." The young kitsune hissed at him with a glare that could melt ice. Chuckling, Harry gently pulled her into a hug, which she wholeheartedly returned. "Of course I didn't, you are too gorgeous to miss." Kunu blushed a bit at the praise but mumbled a quick thank you to him before the four of them went back inside. "Wani-san." The kids cried out at the sight of Kunu, especially Suki, before quickly leaving their seats to pounce on the kitsune, who laughed as she found herself being hugged by the mass of kids. Yasaka and Gabriel laughed at the scene along with pretty much everyone. Suki and Jane then went to greet their respective mothers before an opening shadow portal caught everyone's attention. Stepping out of it was none other than Ophis, the infinite dragon, while allowed a small smile to appear on her face as she looked at everyone present. Harry was about to greet her when, in a burst of flame, appeared Ravel Phoenix and her familiar Ho-Oh, previously Fox. "Greetings everyone," Ravel inquired to the people present with a soft smile on her face. Ho-Oh, for his part, went to stand beside Hedwig, who greeted him with a nod. The two of them became great friends after the Red Phoenix bonded with Ravel. "Now that everyone is present, how about we just sit and wait for our dinner?" Harry inquired with a smile as his green eyes scanned everyone. They all nodded in agreement, and a few moments later, food was served. As he ate, Harry couldn't help but looking around at his family. Some of the kids were chatting with either their moms about school or listening the stories Esh and Muerte. His heart was filled with pride as he looked at everyone as, after many years of hardship, battles and troubles, he finally got what he always wanted, a big family. Smiling, the emerald-eyed man then went back on his food, listening to the chats around him. Once they all ate, all of them went to watch movies until they all went to bed. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Asian Lion Heart 310 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.